quite interesting. Got a thought as I was reflecting on the first video about personal science here. So what is the thing about science that all the scientists think is stupid? Well, we can't publish the papers that have negative results. When we don't prove our hypothesis, nobody wants to hear about our experiment, right? That's stupid. Because failing is the biggest way to gain knowledge, right? It's not like this, guys. 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 Maybe it's like this. I don't know, right? So those are the things that are super duper critical. But those are the things that scientists aren't publishing about, right? Because in order to get published, you have to have a clean story. You have to say this is what the case is, not like, oh, I thought this was the case and I was wrong. It doesn't work like that in science, unfortunately, right? That is an unfortunate circumstance. Why? Because we know we have a principle: fail often, fail fast, in startups, right, or in business culture or whatever, and in humanity, right? We should be failing often, failing fast, and learning from our mistakes. So as a scientist, right, there should be two echelons of knowledge production, right? For your own personal science, or multiple echelons, right? Personal science, how this relates to people in a large, people at large or whatever, and then how it relates to the general scientific knowledge. So there should be echelons of legitimacy of knowledge, right? So there's stuff that's like good enough that might, maybe try this out in your day-to-day life to see if it's gonna optimize some interaction or whatever, but know that we haven't quite proved this out scientifically. But there is something here that we've observed that we could use your help exploring, right? So if you start experimenting with this in your life and then you report back on the results, we might get some more hypotheses about what's actually happening, right? So we do an experiment. It's not like it's about human interaction. It's about cognition and this and that. It's about consciousness, and we don't get the exact results we want. We can't really publish them. It's an idea. So we need to share it to the sphere of personal science to let the other personal scientists out there root out the idea. It's like collaborators, right? A bunch of other scientific collaborators share, taking that knowledge, integrating it in their daily life, exploring it, trying it on for size, and then reporting back with their reflections and experiences and results, right? Just like Da Vinci said, man, everything is about experience, basic first-hand experience. So when we have a million people out there doing personal science and gathering a million different experiences about each idea we have, and we're gonna have a ranking system, in this personal science forum or whatever. Here's the top problems we're working on. Which one are you interested? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? If you're interested in 3, all right, man, start looking at how to make friends or whatever. What does it mean to convince somebody, persuade somebody? Try technique 1, 2, 3 in your daily interactions. Who does it work with? Who doesn't work with? What's your connection with them? What's your what's your history with them? And how did it go against the predictions that we were talking about? How did it go against your own predictions? And what is your contribution to our theory that we're starting to develop here, but it's not good enough yet to formulate accurate hypotheses and to be published in real scientific journals, right? So we explore this and chart it out in personal science first, right? And try to get people to test it out in their daily lives. This is not like medicine, right? It's not like, oh, we're doing a drug trial. No, it's like these are like different interaction medicines, right? So it's like, oh, try being more transparent with people in your relationships, and in so doing, ask them about what's up in their life more often, right? And then try to relate to their problems rather than shoving stuff down their throat or something like that, right? So this could be a technique, and then they reflect on how they implemented that technique, what it meant to them, how they actually made it work in their own life, and then what was resulting from that. And from that data, we'll do some statistical analyses on the scientific side, and we'll say after a month of putting that kind of personal science theory out there for feedback from the personal science community, now we've got 1 million data points, and it's all anecdotal, right? But we actually do have some statistical significance and some indicators of statistical significance. So now we can actually design a robust hypothesis, and an experimental design to really test the shit out of this idea, right? So we then set up a controlled experiment to, account for all the variables that these personal scientists don't really care about in their day-to-day, because this is their life, right? They're not trying to control and have a control variable and have a control friend, here's control friend A, and here's, experimental friend B. I'm going to be nice to my experimental friend B and mean to my control friend A. No, that's not how it works, man. So that's why this isn't necessarily science, because we're not necessarily doing a control, right? But that's fine. We don't need a control to get more insights. That's what science is not realizing. All these things we do help us gain insights. These little reflective videos I do help me gain insights. These, chatting with people all day help me gain insights. These are the things that scientists do already, but they don't account for in their own scientific method. They say, no, the scientific method is about forming a hypothesis, designing an experiment, and then figuring out whether that's right. What about everything that happened for you to come up with that hypothesis, man? What about all the different, chit chats you've had with all your friends to make you feel confident that this hypothesis is going to be worth your investigation, right? That commitment of resources on the part of scientists is very serious. We don't have that many resources to begin with, right? So when a scientist commits resources to rooting out a certain hypothesis, they have to be pretty darn sure that it's not going to be a bust, right? So this is going to be the drawing board, the sketching board for scientists, all right, which is very necessary for science, right, in order to increase the rapidness with which discoveries are made and to advance, our society to the point of the singularity where we have AI it's creative AI, human computation AI. I don't think it's going to take over the world because it can't. It's physically impossible for the AI to surpass the collective, intelligence of consciousness because human computation is the brain of this AI, right? So we need this quick and dirty science. We do need quick and dirty personal science, and we need quick and dirty millions upon millions of little scientists that are just exploring these things on an experiential, anecdotal level and reporting back the results. Give us some indicators, man, about consciousness. This stuff is hard, all right? We need to perform rapid experiments about subjective states of consciousness, right? Which is tough. So, in order to do this on a real scale, we need help. We need bunches and bunches of help, and we don't need experiments, right? Because this is exploratory science right now. We don't know what experiments to do. We don't know what exactly to investigate. We don't, and furthermore, there's not the resources to do this, right? So this is going to help advance science at a much faster pace if we introduce this personal science, right? Because this personal science is like a sketchboard, right? In the design process, this is like the flexible sketching in the early stages. And science is like CAD, right? A very, very expensive simulation to help us root out the precise implications of a particular hypothesis, building a hypothesis. If I build it like this, is it gonna be within budget? Is it gonna perform the functionalities that I need to perform, and stuff like that. So that CAD really helps to investigate those hypotheses, but it's very intense in terms of the time commitment for developing a CAD model. So we need a sketchboard for scientists, and we need a sketchboard to be able to collaborate and share these failed experiments, right, with everybody and why they failed, what might be the case, what's the insight there, right? Don't publish it because, we won't listen to you because that's not how science works, right? You only have to publish positive results. So instead of complaining about the fact that nobody accepts negative results, let's create a second forum for all those negative results and for just ideas and for citizens that want to contribute in a less rigorous way, not necessarily making controlled experiments, but doing systematic changes in their life and then looking at the results, right? Because this is about consciousness, about human interaction, things like that. So these people can be involved, and we need them to be involved in order to really prove this stuff out. So this is a critical step. This is a critical step to advance science and a critical step to advance humanity. Again, science and personal science should be like human computation, AI, and humans, right? So as science progresses, it should pull personal science upwards, and then there's going to be swings where personal science is actually more advanced than regular science in particular areas like consciousness and perception, and then science will catch up because it'll come up with ideas and hypotheses to root out more systematically, and that will eventually be integrated into scientific, consciousness or knowledge consciousness or whatever. So personal science and science will have a reciprocal feedback relationship to propel them both onwards and make scientists all that much smarter and make humans all that much smarter as a whole.